First and foremost, just want to offer honest praise, respect, acknowledgement, and thanks to the great King of the universe. Amen. To the God of our fathers, to the God of Abraham, the God of Zaccar, and the God of Yaakov. Amen. Thanking him for all things and everything. I bid you in the tongue of my forefathers. Shalom. Please be seated. Thanking the Most High God for life. Thanking him for strength. Thanking him for food, clothing, and shelter. Thanking the Most High God because he is good and his mercy endures forever. Thanking him for my life. Thanking him for the lives of my family. Thanking him for your lives and the lives of your families. So we're going to, how long does the cahoots usually take? Like 45 minutes, plus or minus?
Something more or less, yeah. Something like that.
All right. So we're going to do a couple of things today. So I'm going to go through Psalms 65 and 66, and which I believe will be relatively quick. And so for all of the young people who just stepped away and stepped outside, I just need y'all to hear me. After I'm done, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a bit of a open session conversation where everybody that is between the ages of 13 and 25, I want to make sure that y'all are in here because we're going to ask each and every one of you. This is the thing, so y'all have a bunch of time to think. I want y'all to tell us one issue that you see in Israel and how you recommend that we can correct it. So for everybody that's out in the back, please keep that in mind. And we're going to try to, because the days are long and we want to make it interactive. I know it's a long day. It's a hot day. We want to make it interactive before we get to the cahoots. But what we also want to do is we also want to start to have these conversations and open conversations because we want our young people to feel like they're heard. We want to hear the things that you all are seeing, the things that you're noticing, and we also want your input on how we can all be better. Before we start, just want to touch on a quick story that I heard in the news that this week that was very disappointing. Actually, a couple of things. For those sports fans, I don't know if you know who Jerry West is. Jerry West he was a prominent basketball player in the 70s, perhaps the 60s as well, for the Lakers. And he died this past week. They're saying that Jerry West said, I would rather die before I see the Celtics win another championship. And right now the Celtics are up 3-0 depending on what happened last night, which none of us should know until later on. But the only reason that I bring that up is because I want us to consider the things that we say out of our mouths, because sometimes the things that we say out of our mouths are power. When you have a pain and you say things like, this pain is killing me, watch what you say. What we want to do is we want to be able to speak positive energy. We want to be able to speak positive things into the atmosphere because I understand, and this is going to show you when we go through this psalm, we're going to see where they talk about the greatness of God and the things that God does on a consistent basis. But one of the things that's going to be important is in that 5th verse where it says, happy is the man who who thou choosest and bringest near. Happy is the person who God chooses. And I want us to consider that just because God has chosen us, that doesn't mean that life is going to be peaches and cream. That doesn't mean that everything is always going to go smooth just because God has chosen us, because life is still life. And so we want to be able to speak positive things into the atmosphere. We want to always be able to bring positive energy, because the thing about negative energy is depressing and it's draining. When you think about when you speak to somebody and you're in a good mood and somebody responds, you ask, hey, Shalom, how you doing? And the response is, oh, my back this and the bills this and this. You regret the fact that you asked them how they was doing, because negative energy is draining. And we understand that life is hard, but we want to be able to speak positive things into the atmosphere, positive energy. Right. Because with all of the negative things that's in the world, we need all of the positive energy that we can get. Right. The second thing I realized that I'm not going to touch on that because it's actually a bit heartbreaking, so I'm not going to even get into it. But we can start whenever you're ready.
We're in the book of Psalms, Psalm 65. For the leader of Song of David, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Praise waited for thee, O Yah, in Zion, and unto thee the vow is performed. O thou that hearest prayer.
Hold on right there. So it starts off and it says, praise wait for thee, O God, in Zion, and unto thee is the vow performed. And I just found it interesting that this portion came up today when we talked about vows in the portion, but we also talked about the vow of a Nazarite in the Torah portion as well. And I just want us to think about this for a minute with the Torah portion. And the Maftir touched on it, where he said that the wife had been barren, the family had been barren, the wife had been barren, and the family had been looking for a child. And God gave them a child. They gave them exactly what they asked for, but that child that God gave them came along with some stipulations. And I want us to think about this for a minute. The child that God gave them, God said that he's going to be a Nazarite from the womb, so you can't drink any wine. All of the rules related to the Nazarite, that child now needs to follow. You and the child needs to follow. And the interesting part about that is that for that child being Shimshon, that child coming into this world, he didn't ask for certain things. Mm-hmm. He didn't ask for that heavy burden to be placed upon him, that he was going to be the one responsible to save the children of Israel from the Philistines. He didn't ask for that. But that's what God put upon him. And I say that to say, I know for us sometimes, I believe that it's important for us to go through these words, and it's important for us to understand what happened then, but it's also important for us to be able to apply the things that happened then to today. Right. And I want us to consider that for a minute as it relates to Shimshon. He didn't ask for that responsibility. And that's a huge responsibility to have to save an entire people. Shimshon, from his youth, had a responsibility, and he just wanted to be a youth. He just wanted to be a regular person. But sometimes we're not, God doesn't have it in a plan for us to just be regular people. Sometimes God has entrusted in us a responsibility, required of us a responsibility that goes further than just us being a regular person. Mm-hmm. And like the Maftir said this morning, when you read about the life of Shimshon, it wasn't like Shimshon wasn't the most righteous out of all. He was who he was. He liked women. He liked foreign women. He liked women. Shimshon did what he wanted to do. That didn't change the responsibility that God had him, designated him for. Right. And so what I want us to consider is that we may not always believe life is fair. But God has a requirement for us, and that's what we're going to be judged by. That's what we need to fulfill. It's not going to always be the things that we want. And if you think about it, I mean, I respect Samson for who he is. I respect him for the spirit that he showed. Wasn't the most righteous, but God had him to do the job the way that God had him to do the job. He still had to do the job. And so when they start to talk, when they go into this and it says, unto thee the vow is performed, just think about God. Just think about the requirements that God has from us. Unfortunately for us, God made the children of Israel to be different. God told Abraham that through your seed, the entire earth is going to be blessed. That's our portion. Our portion is that we are required to be a blessing to other people. And God made it so, whether we're good or whether we're bad, God still made it so. Because when we're good and we're upright, God made it so that our uprightness and our teaching and all of those different things will be a blessing to the nations when we're upright. And when we're not, God allowed the nations to become rich off the sweat of our backs. Either way, God blessed the nations through us in our good and in our bad. Come on.
O thou that hearest prayer, unto thee doth all flesh come. The tale of iniquities is too heavy for me. As for our transgressions, thou wilt pardon them. Happy is the man whom thou choosest and bringest near, that he may dwell in thy courts. May we be satisfied with the goodness of thy house, the holy place of thy temple.
Listen, the thing about being chosen by God is supposed to be a joy and a happiness to us, not a burden. Being chosen by God is supposed to be an upliftment to us, not something that we drag our feet to do. Just think about, out of the hundreds of millions of people in this world, God chose you. Out of the billions of people that have lived, God chose you. God chose us. Happy is the man who thou choosest and bringest near, that he might dwell in thy courts. I think for us, sometimes it's a word that I'm looking for, and it's not coming to me. But we take it for granted, the blessing that we have in being here. Because you don't have to be here. Because God could have easily chosen someone else. We take it for granted that we're an Israelite and that we know God, and we take it for granted sometimes, so much so that we don't put in the same effort that people who don't know God put in trying to find God. And we take it for granted. But the pursuit of God and our pursuit of God and the things that we put before him, that's going to be the determining factor on those who he going to choose. And just bear in mind, just because we're here doesn't mean that we're promised anything. Mm-hmm. Because God said to Daniel clearly, some are going to wake up to everlasting life and some won't. We need to make sure that we put God first in everything.
Amen.
And the rest of what he's going to read here is going to show you why. Come on.
With wondrous works dost thou answer us in righteousness.
Come on.
O Yah of our salvation.
Because when God does things for us, he doesn't just do it small, he does it big. When God gives us the things that we need, he doesn't do it small, he does it big. And the funny thing, the interesting thing, is that even when you're in tune and you understand God, you realize that sometimes it's the small things that matter. Because we made it to our destination here safely. Everybody wasn't afforded the opportunity to make it to their destination this morning safely. You see the accidents that you see on the road. You see the crime that's going on in the city and throughout the country. Everybody is not afforded the same opportunities that we're afforded to what? Be safe. And that's worthy of a torah YAH if I ever heard one. Because everybody wasn't afforded that. Come on.
With wondrous works dost thou answer us in righteousness, O Yah of our salvation.
Come on.
Thou the confidence of all the ends of the earth and of the far distant seas, who by thy strength settest fast the mountains, who art girded about with might, who stilleth the roaring of the seas and the roaring of their waves and the tumult of the peoples, so that they that dwell in the uttermost part stand in awe of thy signs.
Come on.
Thou makest the outgoings of the morning and evening to rejoice.
So this is the thing about God, right? Like, and it's that psalm, it's that one verse in the 150th psalm that gets me every time. When it says, let every kol han shama te halel Yah. Let everything that has breath praise the Most High God. Because I think sometimes we don't realize that when it says, let everything that has breath praise the Most High God, they talking about everything.
Everything.
Because even when we not right, the trees is praising God. Even when we not right, the seas are praising God. And even when we're not right, the animals are praising God. And it's like that portion that God said in Malachi when he says, when he was talking to the priests, and he talked about how the priests took the offerings for granted. And he said to Malachi, and Malachi said, listen, from the ends of the earth, my name is great. Amen. And where all of those people are praising my name, it's not just us. It's not just us. It's not just slated for us, and it's not just us. God's going to get his praise. God's going to get his praise. The question is going to be, who's going to give it and who's not? But it's going to come. Because every time, you see where it says, thou makest the outgoing of the morning and the evening to rejoice. When the sun rises every morning, that's praise to God.
Amen. And
they rejoice in doing it. When the sun sets and the moon comes up, that's praise to God. And they rejoice in doing it. The God that we serve is awesome. Amen. The God that we serve is great. The God that we serve, listen, we're in the lands of our captivity where people hate us. Fridge is still full. Everybody's still looking nice. 1, 2, 3 cars in a house sometimes. TV in every room. Most well-treated slaves we ever been. Most well-treated slaves than there has ever been. And yet we in captivity. God treats us well. And just think about it like this. If God's treating us well and make sure we fed and clothed in captivity, imagine when we home. And I know sometimes it might be hard to look like, sometimes that's hard to look at from a people who have been slaves all their lives. I get that. But you got to be able to picture, in order for your pursuit to be worth it, you have to be able to picture what God is showing and saying that it's going to be much greater than what you have right now. You got to be able to picture it in order for you to strive for it. When you go to school or when you go to work and when you go to get that job, you see the value in what you perceive you're going to be able to do once that blessing comes. We need to be able to see the value in the blessing that God is bringing. We need to be able to see that. Come on.
Thou hast remembered the earth and watered her, greatly enriching her, with the river of Yah that is full of water. Thou preparest them corn, for so preparest thou her, watering her ridges abundantly, settling down the furrows thereof. Thou makest her soft with showers. Thou blessest the growth thereof. Thou crownest the year with thy goodness, and thy paths drop fatness. The pastures of the wilderness do drop, and the hills are girded with joy. The meadows are clothed with flocks. The valley are also covered with corn. They shout for joy, yea, they sing.
Think about what he's showing. He says, listen, thou preparest the corn So thou preparest the her, watering her ridges abundantly, setting down the furrows thereof, making her soft with showers. God, this is the elements giving praise to God. This is the grass and the food and all of those things giving praise to God. The things that we need in order to nourish us, this is them giving praise to God for the things that he does on a constant basis. And then he says things like, when you look at the poetry of it all, when he says, thou crownest the year with thy goodness, meaning once the year starts, it's already blessed, it's royalty, it's already blessed. When Aviv the first came in, it's already blessed. You already blessed to have a good year because God crowned it that way. And our paths drop fatness. He crowned the year with goodness, and the path throughout the rest of the year is going to be nothing but richness. You got to be able to imagine that and claim that, because that's what God has given to his people. But we got to want it. Mm-hmm. We got to want it. And that's part of the reason that I believe, I truly believe, I know God created a great people. God created an intelligent people, a smart people, a beautiful people. We got to be able to do better than what we have right now. We got to be. And so if it means that we need to start to ask some questions to try to figure it out, then let's start to take the steps that we need to figure it out. Because surely what God promised us got to be better than this. And I know we can. We have some of the smartest, most brilliant children that are out there. Graduates, high school graduates, college graduates. Y'all already ahead of us. I could count the number of people on one hand of college graduates that I know from our generation, and y'all got that already. Y'all have that already. Because I know it's at least a few of them in this house, in this room right now. Y'all have that already. So that path that God said is dropping with fatness, you already see it. You already see the prosperity of it because you see the little ones where we had to struggle through high school, where we had to struggle through college, y'all zipping through it. Well, some of y'all anyway. But we had to struggle through. And it shows that God is making each generation easier. But it's also showing you as each successive generation that you can be better. You got to be better. Because once we start to get older, it's going to be upon y'all to take over. And the question is what are y'all going to do that's going to make the nation better than what previous generations have done? That's the question. Come on.
Psalm 66. For the leader, a song, a psalm. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shout unto Yah all the earth. Sing praises unto the glory of his name. Make his praise glorious. Say unto Yah, how tremendous is thy work.
Come on.
Through the greatness of thy power shall thine enemies dwindle away before thee. All the earth shall worship thee, and shall sing praises unto thee. They shall sing praises to thy name, Selah.
You know, I think one of the bad things that we've picked up is that we have somehow acquired this disdain where we feel like if somebody doesn't call themselves an Israelite, they're not worth listening to. When we know that someone's sitting in church, we have a certain disdain for that person sitting in church to the point where they can't tell me anything. They sitting in church. And I want us to consider that there's some people sitting in church right now, or probably will be tomorrow, that God is looking at as more of a prospect than some of us who know God right now, because their heart is different. You have some people who sit in and will pursue God to the end, but they're truly pursuing God. They just haven't received the information that they need to receive yet. So sometimes for us, rather than take this, sometimes we need to pump our brakes a little bit, take it down, and rather than think we gonna teach people from church something and they gonna sit and listen, sometimes we need to be able to sit and listen. Because granted, people from church may not have God. We believe people from church may not have the true and the living God. That's what we believe, because we were taught to believe that through generational curses. But people in churches have things, Torah-related things, that we don't have. People in churches know how to work together, which is Torah. People in churches know how to talk to each other and how to do business, all of those things, which is Torah. So people in churches, through their demonstrated actions, have been able to be successful at applying Torah, yet because they go to churches, we believe that that's insignificant. That's not insignificant. The ability to be able to work together and build something together has to be much better than everybody knowing everything and we have nothing. And if it's not better, it at least has to be a benefit somehow. So maybe not better, but it's a benefit. So what I'm saying is, we need to be able to learn, and we need to be able to go to people who have demonstrated their abilities to be successful and try to understand, how can we be successful? Because we're not reflecting success. We're reflecting individual success, which is a plus. I know there's some people in here who make pretty good money as individuals and as families. We have that. But if we make good money as individuals, as families, why don't we have more as a nation? There must be something missing. We have farmers, we have tradespeople, we have professional people, and yet we come to service once a week and we go home, and the people who we scorn for being idol worshipers are busy throughout the week. We need to learn how to get some of that. We need to learn how to get some of that. And if not, then how do we create success with what we have? Because those are the things that I think that we really need to start to, we talked about it enough. Right now, those are the things that we need to start to talk about now, with a perspective of building towards those. Because I wonder, I look at people, and I look at people at work, and I look at, you know, what amazes me? It amazes me how I see people, like, you know, people sell mangoes and watermelon on the Belt Parkway. Mm-hmm. Like, literally on the Belt Parkway. Literally, they have their, we were talking about this last week. They have their cooler. They have cups of watermelon, mango, and they got those green things, which I don't know what they are, but people must buy them because they have them. And they stand in the middle of the divider. They're there. Their child is there. Child alone running the street. Child is there, and they sell, and they sell, and they sell. And then you look up in a little while, and you see people like that, you see them driving through your neighborhoods in trucks that they purchased because they're doing construction. Or you see them driving through your neighborhoods in trucks that they purchased because they do landscaping. Or whatever it is that they're doing, starting from selling watermelons and mangoes. And you got to wonder, like, how does that happen? And it has to be the communal aspect of what they're willing to be able to do together that allowed them to manifest that success. And we need to learn how to do the same. We need to learn how to do whatever it takes before God to be able to manifest that success. And God puts it in front of us, and He allows us to be able to share. This week I was in 1PP, and I was in there for a minority business workshop. And it might have been 100 people. It might have been 100 people in that workshop, minority business workshop. Hear me, minority business workshop. Might have been 100 people in there, and out of that 100 people, maybe 7 of us was black. In a minority business workshop, maybe 7 of us was black. And I saw a lot of Middle Eastern people, a lot of business. I want to be clear, because I didn't see a lot of Middle Eastern people. I saw a lot of Middle Eastern business owners. I saw Eastern European business owners, all who were able to successfully navigate business in New York City in a minority business workshop. And the only thing that I'm saying is God gave us the talent, God gave us the information, God gave us the resources. And we just need to figure out how to put all of those things together to be able to manifest success. Homeowners, business owners, and a lot of us make good money, and we're renters and consumers. And that's not what God required us to be, but that is what God relegated us to be if we are unable to follow the Torah that He gave us, because the Torah is going to manifest success if we follow it in a manner that is prescribed. Come on.
Verse 5. Come and see the works of Yah. He is terrible in His doing toward the children of men.
And what I'm saying is, so the works of Yah that He's saying to come and see, some of the works of Yah that He's saying He's calling for us to come see, some of them are terrible. Some of them are tornadoes. Some of them are hurricanes. Some of them are hail in the middle of the summer. Those are some of the works of Yah that He told us to come and see. But what I'm also telling you, some of the works of Yah that He's telling us to come see are those subtle things. Some of the works of Yah are those subtle things that God is showing us that we're not getting because they're subtle. But for you to live in the United States, in New York, for 20 years, not 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and still be a consumer and a renter, and people can come and become business owners and homeowners, that is a work of Yah that some of us need to come and see. Because it's showing a path towards success. Sometimes it's those subtle paths that we need to see. And most of them, if not all of them, refer back to Deuteronomy 28, when he says things like, you're going to be the head and not the tail. When he says, the people who are going to come in are going to rise up above you, and you're going to become lower and lower. Those are the things that, the works of God, that we need to come see. Because Asians come in. When I went to Brooklyn Tech, how many ever years ago? It was mixed and diverse. When I look at, because they're talking about it now, for those of you who are not familiar with the way New York City works, there's specialized high schools in New York City that you have to take a test to get into. Brooklyn Tech is one of them. When I went to Brooklyn Tech, and me going to Brooklyn Tech is actually where I met many of the Israelites that I know, and that's actually how I came here. Me going to Brooklyn Tech is where I met Naf and Chief Naftali, and that's one of the major reasons on why I'm here right now. But Brooklyn Tech was a lot more diverse. Blacks, whites, Asians, Indian, not really a lot of Middle Eastern Indians, not a lot. But when you look at the diversity in Brooklyn Tech now and in specialized high schools now, primarily Asian, followed by Eastern Indian, and I think the percentage of black people and Hispanics in those specialized high school is definitely less than 10%. So when God said things like, the stranger is going to come in and mount higher and higher, and you're going to mount lower and lower, those are the things that we need, and those are the things that we need to talk about. Those are the things that we need to show, because when he says, come and see the works of God, those are the things that we need to see. Because God's prophecies are manifesting themselves right before our eyes. But if you're not familiar with God's prophecies, you're not going to see it. If you're not aware of God's prophecies, you're not going to see it. Come on.
He turned the sea into dry land. They went through the river on foot. There let us rejoice in him, who ruleth by his might forever. His eyes keep watch upon the nations. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves, Selah. Bless our Yah, ye peoples, and make the voice of his praise to be heard.
Come on, say it again.
Bless our Yah, ye peoples, and make the voice of his praise to be heard.
You know, it's an interesting thing about this testimony, because sometimes I used to get weirded out by it, but I'm getting better. Like when you see people and they come up and they testify before the people about God. And the reason that they are testifying is because God put them through a test. And they were able to be successful, so they have a testimony. Right. So when sometimes people come up and you don't know the things that God put people through, that's the thing. You know you, and you know how what God did affected you. Just like you know how what God did affected you, each and every single one of us who have a testimony can testify to how what God did affected them. And everybody has one. And that doesn't mean that my testimony is more important than yours, or yours is more important than mine. Guess what? Sometimes when people testify, a lot of us are looking like, yeah, okay. Right, well, whatever. But that means something to the person who's testifying, that's for sure. And I know that's one of the biggest differences that happen in that generation gap between younger people and older people, is as you get older, you're able to testify more because God has exposed you to more things. Sometimes when you're younger, you haven't seen and you haven't experienced. But as you get older and God brings you through it and you testify. And it means something to the person who was impacted by God's work. Come on.
Who have set our soul in life, and suffer not our foot to be moved. For thou, O Yah, hast tried us, thou hast refined us as silver is refined. Thou didst bring us into the hold, thou didst lay constraint upon our loins.
Come on.
Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but thou didst bring us out unto abundance.
Oh man, can you read that again? Verse 12.
Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but thou didst bring us out unto abundance.
So what God is saying, what the psalmist is saying is Yah, you caused men to ride over us. Guess what? The people who are from the elders who are from the 60s can relate to that a lot more than we can. Mm-hmm. And they'll tell you that. So they can tell you because they know what the experience is to have dogs. Mm. They know what the experience is to have fire hoses. Mm-hmm. They know what those experiences are. Fortunately for my generation, we haven't had the physical aspect of that. We haven't had to endure the physical aspect of it. We see it. We see it from a video. But our elders felt that. Think about that. Our elders saw that. You have people that are in your midst that can tell you, I know what it feels like, I know what it looks like to have to go into a colored restroom or drink from a colored water fountain. You have people that can tell you that firsthand. Right here. We don't know that. I couldn't even imagine. I see the videos of the individuals that sat in Woolworths and people spit in their faces and poured ketchup on them. I see the videos. I feel a way. I'm moved by the video. You have people who went through it.
Right.
You have people who have been experienced to where they called you a N-word to your face. And so you read back in this verse 10, and it says, thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. We went through the fire and water, but thou didst bring us out unto abundance. You brought us through it. You caused us to go through it, and you brought us through it, and we richly survived it. And I know sometimes younger people don't see that, and that's okay. Because it took a while for me to see certain things as well. And for the younger people, if you get to see it, prayerfully you'll get through it. But it's giving you the confidence and people who can testify that God has already done it for them. And that's what the psalmist is showing. Come on.
I will come into thy house with burnt offerings. I will perform unto thee my vows, which my lips have uttered, and my mouth hath spoken when I was in distress. I will offer unto thee the burnt offerings of fatlings. With the sweet smoke of rams, I will offer bullocks with goats. Selah.
Come on.
Come and hearken
because
all
this
ye.
is the thing, right? This is the thing. When you've been through some things, when you've seen some things, it's easy for you to be able to want to put everything else aside and say, I'm going to come into the house of God and I'm going to perform my vows and I'm going to bring my offerings. It's easy for you to say it when you've seen it. When you haven't seen it yet, it's a little bit more difficult. But that's okay. Just take somebody's word for it who has. Come on.
Come and hearken, all ye that fear Yah, and I will declare what he hath done for my soul. I cried unto him with my youth, and he was extolled with my tongue. If I had regarded iniquity in my heart, Yahweh would not hear.
Come on, I need you to say that again.
I cried unto him with my mouth, and he was extolled with my tongue. If I had regarded iniquity in my heart, Jehovah would not hear.
If you cannot give others the same courtesy that you want from God, God's not hearing. He said it. He said, I cried to God. However, if I regarded iniquity, if I held on to iniquity, if I held on to somebody who was who offended me, who tried to apologize and I didn't allow them, if I held on to that, God would not hear me. We need to learn to let go. And never, ever am I going to tell you to be a fool. And never am I going to tell you to be a sucker. Never am I going to tell you to be taken advantage of. However, when people genuinely come to try to fix, we need to learn to let go. Because he said, I knew it. If I regarded iniquity in my heart, if I held it, God would not hear me. And this is the thing. Nobody gonna know but you. We need to be self-aware enough. We need to be self-aware enough to know when I'm holding on to something that I know I really need to let go of. Because if we hold on, he said it. If I regarded, if I thought about, if I held on to iniquity in my heart, nobody else know. If I held on to it in my heart, God won't hear me. When you hold on to iniquity in your heart, when you hold on to certain things in your heart, just like him, God will not hear you. Because you can't come before God. God, please. All of the nice accolades. The great King of the universe, thou art merciful. Thou art long-suffering, abundance in truth. All of that. You can't come to God with all of that knowing that somewhere in the corner of your heart, deep down in the back, that you're not willing to offer someone what you're asking God for. Come on.
But verily Yah hath heard, he hath attended to the voice of my prayer. Blessed be Yah who have not turned away my prayer, nor his mercy from me. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Can you ask those